Welcome to the video. In this one, I want to show you guys how I eat without tracking my food, but in a way I'm tracking mentally. I don't need super strict numbers right now, especially with training for a half marathon, and my calorie needs are going to vary day to day. So my approach with nutrition is more so to listen to my body, and if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat more. And also, I mentally account for protein more than any of the other macronutrients, because protein is super key for recovery, and that's the most important macronutrient. So I'm going to still be ensuring that I do get my 180 plus grams of protein. If I end up getting 220 is what it is, awesome. That's completely fine with me. So first meal here is, I did weigh it out. So I got 100 grams of oats, 80 grams of blueberries. I'm gonna have 3 clementines here, or mandarins, same thing in my opinion. So this meal is gonna be, I'd say 100 grams of carbs. I put in a scoop and a half of protein powder. So through the milk and the protein powder, I'm going to be around 50 grams of protein for this meal, which isn't a crazy amount, but in my other meals today, I do know that I will be getting in enough protein to ensure that I'm getting enough. This is meal number 1 for me. So I know 100 plus grams of carbs, and also this is very low in fat. The only thing that has fat in this meal is the 2% milk, and it's under 10 grams. So that means that I do need to at least get in higher fat in my other meals as well, because fat is super important for hormone health and various other reasons as well, but that's the most important reason. So I always recommend that you get a minimum of 60 grams of fat per day. That's a good baseline to live by, but you can also get up to 150 some days if you want. Depends on what your calorie needs are and how your body responds to carbs for energy versus fat for energy and all that. So it's good to kind of play around with it and determine what works best for you. But for me, carbs are a very important fuel source, especially when weight training or running for intensity, which that is the goal right now. So depending on the day, I could be getting in 300 grams of carbs, and some days I could be getting in 500 grams of carbs. So during the higher or the higher volume mileage days, I'm going to be getting in upward to 500, and my calories are going to be in the upper 3000s, versus a day like today where I'm just lifting, it's going to be in the 3000 to 3200-ish range. But if I get in 3500 is what it is. I'm listening to my body, and when it needs more fuel, I'm going to eat, because the goal is to perform. If your body's hungry and you want to perform well, you gotta feed it when it's asking for fuel. So when I'm hungry, I'm just gonna add more carbs to my meals. So this is meal number 1. Guesstimate 100 grams of carbs and 50 grams of protein, fat 10 grams ish. So I'll talk to you guys in the next meal. A little weight training tip for you runners out there. Do not just view weight training from a muscular perspective. Yes, it is very important to weight train to become stronger and to become a faster runner, but weight training is just as important for strengthening your joints, tendons, ligaments, and the movement that I found to really help me for my Achilles, which is a very common injury that runners get, Achilles tendonitis or whatever it might be, is calf raises. Single leg calf raises with a little bit of an added load. So during these, I am holding a 15-pound dumbbell, and that's going to help strengthen my calves as well as the Achilles tendon. So by strengthening your tendons and ligaments, it will help you prevent injuries. So that is a very important part about strength training. Do not neglect it. Second meal of the day, we got a chicken quarter with the bone, the skin, everything, and then a couple slices of sourdough, which on the package it says 25 grams of carbs per 2 slices, so that's about 50 grams of carbs there. The peas are 52 grams of carbs, so we're around 105-ish grams of carbs, I'm gonna guess, because I didn't necessarily weigh out the bread, and these were from the center of the loaf, so I think it was a little bit more. And then the chicken quarter, that is something that I would never meal prep with or never eat if I wanted to be extremely dialed in with my nutrition, because it's hard to be 100% accurate with bone in stuff as well as the skin on stuff. So I'm just guesstimating there's 40 to 50 grams of fat within this meal, and that's all going to be coming from the chicken quarter. And this is a meal that I really look forward to when I'm not tracking, because the crispy skin, the flavor, so good. And if you're eating a bunch of clean whole foods, make sure you're salting your food. Because if you're eating very clean, very minimally processed foods, you're gonna be pretty low on sodium, and sodium is extremely important, especially if you're sweating a lot and working out really hard and want to perform your absolute best. So reminder to salt your food. Sodium is your friend. Oh, I also have half a scoop of collagen protein in here, which is 10 grams of protein. And then I'm gonna guess from the peas, there's 20 grams of protein. And then the chicken quarter, probably 40 more. So I'd guess this is around 70 grams of protein within this meal. Plus, actually there's some in there. So it's probably close to 80 grams of protein, which will put me at, let's just say 130 for the day. And I'm having 3 meals in the day, and I should be easily getting over 50 grams during my final meal of the day. So one thing I want you guys to take away from this video is that the more you track, the more you can just eyeball things, the more you can just quickly look at the label and guesstimate things, to where you don't have to obsess about tracking every single little thing. Like if you want to dial it in to become shredded for summer, or make sure you're eating enough to put on muscle and have a consistent calorie amount to where you can gather that data to make adjustments, then yes, I highly encourage to track everything. But just by gaining the knowledge through tracking, it makes nutrition that much easier when you aren't tracking it. So this is meal number 2. It's gonna be good, and I will show you guys the last and final meal. Mixing up a super simple salad. 1 package of this, 30 calories in the entire thing. Add a little tomato basil feta cheese. Eyeball about a fourth of this thing because I'm going to have this 4 days in a row. Then we got olive oil, which I'm going to eyeball about a half a tablespoon. Based off what I've learned through tracking about how much a half a tablespoon looks like, which is about 7 to 8 grams if I weighed it out. And then apple cider vinegar, 0 calories in this. Just a little splash for some acidity. And that's it. Keep it very simple. So I'm not even really gonna account or think about what calories are in this. Yes, there's gonna be a tiny amount of fat and protein in the feta cheese, but nothing crazy. This is more so for nutrients and fiber. This started off as 4.14 pounds of raw pork loin, which I just rounded it down to 4 pounds. And I knew I was going to divide it into 6 meals. So that's going to get me a little over 10 ounces of pork loin per meal, which will get me well over 50 grams of protein for each and every meal. And one thing to think about too, this thing cost me $7 and I'll put it on the screen, $7.61 or something. Pork loin is such a great budget option for a lean protein source. So it's not like the leanest thing ever, but I like the flavor of pork a lot more than I do of chicken breast, and this is a better option in my opinion. Everybody talks chicken breast, but pork loin, love this shit. So after it was cooked, the weight was a little over 1,200 calories, so I'm just gonna weigh out about 205 grams. So then by the end of the 6 days, it'll be pretty much the exact same amount for every single meal. So that final meal of the day, it's not like I'll have 300 grams or 60 grams of pork left. It's going to be dispersed very evenly throughout the 6 days. Now we got the pork loin warmed up, and I always microwave the rice fresh. I do this mainly because it allows me to change up the carb amounts I have every single day. And I went with 130 grams of dry rice today, which with rice, you get about, so if you weigh out 100 grams of dry rice, you get 80 grams of carbs. So that's one like ratio to think about if you just want to remember for rice. So if you cook 200 grams, you're going to get 160 grams of carbs. So this is my carb source for this meal, and that's hot. That is hot. I'm trying to put on a show for you guys. And like I said earlier, salt your food. Obviously this isn't salt, but there's sodium in it. In the special shit. Get some. Not a sponsor yet. And then some barbecue sauce. I know what you're thinking. There's sugar in that. Okay, sugar is carbs. I need carbs. And it's okay to have a little bit. Like some people freak out about any bit of sugar at all. But like I'm gonna end up having 20 grams of sugar today through this. And it's gonna make this meal extremely enjoyable. And you need foods like this to look forward to and just to not abuse sugar, and you're gonna be completely fine. You'll be okay. Promise you that. So to guesstimate this meal, I'm gonna say 65 to 70 grams of protein. So I'm for sure over 200 grams of protein a day, which is good for me. And when I do eat without tracking, I always make sure that I'm over on protein and over on fat. So within this meal, there's 7 grams of fat per 4 ounces of pork loin. So I'm getting in 14, let's say 18 to 17 grams of fat from that. And then half a tablespoon of olive oil would put me at about 22 grams of fat for this meal. And like I said, from the quarter of chicken, that meal I got in at least 50. So I'm for sure over 70, which is good for me. If I was at 100, that would be okay as well. And my carbs are probably around 320 to 350 for the day. So I'm not gonna need to do I don't need to calculate the calories because I just know if I hit those macro numbers, my calories will need to be where they need to be. And on days that I'm going to train a lot harder or have a longer run, my first meal of the day, the oats, I'm gonna include a lot more carbs during that, so I'm a lot more fueled for those. And then also other days I'm going to eat more carbs are the night before I have a long run. So for example, if I have a long run on Friday, Thursday night, I might have 180 grams of dry rice instead of like 130. So it's just getting close, and to think about like your main fuel sources and to set yourself up for as much success as possible to perform. So that is a day of not tracking. I'm mentally tracking, I guess, but once you track for so long, you just learn and you know what food consists of, and it makes life that much easier. And when you go out to eat, you could look at something and give a good guess with it. This is a hefty freaking meal. Like, I love volume, and even if I'm bulking, like, there's no greater feeling than feeling full. But if I was always to eat garbage food or food that is not the best for me, that's super calorie dense, and I ate till I was full, I would not be in good shape. But when you eat quality, clean food, you can eat so damn much food. So when you're eating healthy, eating whole, single ingredient, natural foods, don't be concerned about like how much volume is here. Like, this is really not as many calories as it might look. So there's some tips for you guys. If you have any questions, comment them below. And I always forget to say like, comment, subscribe. So there's that. And remember, you're never off track. There's always something you can do to support your health and fitness.